Talking to Mr. Ron Crowder, the executive director and the founder of Streetworks. And of course, Mr. Crowder, before we had our first commercial break, we promised that we'd give you an opportunity to talk specifically about the kind of financial aid that you need in order to continue doing what you're doing. I think you've already indicated that while you might have a budget that is almost $250,000, that you could very easily use twice as much money. Why do you believe that the financial resources that ought to come within your community are not necessarily coming to you?
Well, it's hard to say, Dr. Haney. I think that people feel that they just give and give and give. Again, as I mentioned earlier with the other natural disasters, people have given out. But what I want to say is that I think because HIV and AIDS is affecting African Americans at a disproportionate rate, and I think that this is a community problem, therefore it requires a community response.
Solution.
Yes, and that has to come from the minority community. Now, I know that a lot of the minority community say, well, we don't have it to give. Well, everybody got something. And we're saying, if you take, say you take some of the more larger churches, if we could appeal to those congregations, or maybe on the 5th Sunday, take up a collection for the agency. I think we have to get past us thinking that somebody else going to always take care of us. It is time for us to start taking care of ourselves. I would venture to say that there's not an African American family in this city who's not impacted by this dreaded disease. You know, whether it's a long lost cousin, friend, or even a family member. HIV is a disease, and no one deserves it. We still in that denial, stigma, shame, guilt, and all of that. No one deserves HIV. You know what I'm saying?
And it's not getting any better.
It's
I know
not
we've
getting
talked to
any
you
better.
many times in reference to this, and each time you feel that when you come that it's worse now than it was previously. And is that a fair characterization?
Yes, that is absolutely. We're still being, as we speak, I want to say that African Americans right now in the city of Nashville probably account for over 50% of all new HIV infections, and African American women account for probably somewhere around 80% of all new infections.
Now, is it, Mr. Crowder, is it that people don't believe these statistics, or is it that people don't care, or is it the sort of, I think you mentioned one time about putting your head in the sand, but you have your backside up in the air? Is it the head in the sand kind of attitude that people have?
Dr. Haney, I think there's a lot of variables that lend to that. TV, I mean the media, everything we see on television these days has some kind of sexual connotation to it. All of the videos, these young people, that's all they see in the videos. And then we wasn't dealt a fair hand in the beginning of the epidemic. People still seem to think that HIV is a gay man's disease. They still think that HIV is a drug user's disease, but in fact, HIV is a sexually transmitted disease, and it's mostly being transmitted heterosexually. And so, and people are only human, and as humans, they're gonna do what humans do. And so the name of the virus is human immunodeficiency virus, and that being said, if you're human, you have some degree of risk.
and still the finances are not coming in order to. Now, I think quite recently you made a trip to New York.
Yes.
And I think that some of the things that you talked about that they are doing in New York, you also would like to try to incorporate here in Nashville. Why don't you talk about
Well,
some of those efforts?
I went up to meet with Dr. Reverend Charles King, who's the president of Housing Works, who run a very comprehensive program all around housing in New York. Their main thing is they have a very low threshold for housing in New York. And when I say low threshold, and I don't want to be too critical here, is that in New York you don't have to pass a drug test to get in the housing. Their thing is if we get them in the housing and then wrap the service around them, intensive supportive services, then that person maybe can get clean and get their life together. And we're just trying to replicate some of the programs that they're doing.
Well, do you find that there's a real problem of housing and housing AIDS and HIV persons in Nashville here?
Yeah, absolutely, because if you look at the bigger picture, if you got a person living with HIV or AIDS and they don't have housing, then they can't be adherent to their medications. And in the long run, we're paying, you know, the cost of taking care of that individual will probably 2 or 3-fold as if they had housing. And a lot of them can't get housing because they can't pass a drug screen. And then they just caught up in this vicious cycle.
Well, is the purpose of the housing for those individuals, is not the purpose for housing, is housing for people with AIDS?
So, well, they have a program called HOPWA. And that's exactly what it stands for, housing for
people with AIDS. But there's not enough financial support for that kind of program. Is that what we're saying?
There's not enough housing available. It's kind of like treatment on demand. We don't have that here.
Okay, very good. And of course, we're making preparations for our second commercial break here, Ms. Crowder. And when we come back, we want you to say something about some of the possibilities of trying to find some kind of something for this particular virus and some of the things that are done in trials and et cetera, because I know that's something you like to talk about. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. The topic is